Hello guys, Vlogs and Models here, back for another video, and today is another model segment for the video. Now, more recently I did post a short a few months ago about the update. Well, the update also includes some questions. Well, the questions are today, and today we're going to build the harekaze in celebration of High School Fleet's 10th anniversary. Now, High School Fleet is somewhat like Arpeggio Blue Steel here, which is like which their main ship was the I-40 submarine, except now it's a Kachio class destroyer, but it was actually named the Harekaze, which is not based in real life, but was based on a Kamikaze class destroyer actually. But this here we're going to build is a Kachio class destroyer, which was built during World War II and served in battles, but unfortunately they are all scrapped. But this one here will be based upon the anime series, which is also celebrating its 10th anniversary. But I cannot explain like most of the anime series of what it actually was. But basically, it's just like Arpeggio Blue Steel, except high school girls controlling World War II ships and battleships too. So for this video and for the celebration, we're going to build the harekaze. Okay, we're now getting work on the ship. So we already got the cross section earlier, as you see in the short from recently. But now with the cross section now done, we're gonna build just like the I-401 submarine. So first thing we're gonna do was we're going to just cut the part of it.
Now I'm cutting down the bottom because we're actually going to make a waterline version, the same thing as the battleship Missouri, but making the keel will be pretty tough, like the entire thing. But in the future video, I may build a keel along with the battleship Missouri's keel.
Alright, with the whole scale now done, we're now going to move on to the structure section to have the structure of our ship be hold steadily, just like the Arpeggio Blue Steel I-401 submarine. Now we're also going to need to add the deck space to the ship so we can also support the structure. So our deck space could be like a few feet, I think, or like an inch. The ship will be that pretty simple. It's not gonna be like hollow shape, but it's gonna be like a half size of our harekaze ship. Now to do that, we're actually gonna use some square shaped like pieces, and we'll figure out with a bow later.
Now we begin work on the entire frame of the entire vessel to help hold the hull. Since we're going to build it from the middle all the way to the stern, it's important that we do it like 4 times so we reach all the way to the end.
Done this like a few more times, all just left was just here. Now we gotta work on here is the stern, then we'll figure out what we're gonna do with the bow, since the bow is a curve shape. The stern will be pretty easy to do since we just need to wrap it around to make it look like the harekaze, even though there's also the slope here too, so we made to wrap it around like halfway.
Since we're adding the frame to the stern, it's important to make sure you do it very carefully and also very gently with the entire thing, since it needs to be shaped around the stern of our harekaze.
Now we begin adding a stripped piece of cardboard paper to the frame of the entire vessel, which takes trial and error, but I managed to make it through on one side. Well, if you didn't wrap it like all the way, you could like just do it like a few times.
If there are cracks between the hull and the deck, you can always add some hot glue or some cardboard paper, which definitely covers up the cracks, and after the hot glue dries, you can cut it off with some side cutters. Is finishing up the stern, which does look like the stern of the Kachio class destroyer. Now we're gonna move ourselves onto the bow, since the bow is gonna be pretty tricky for me to do. Alright, with the middle deck and the stern now dried up, now we're gonna move on to the bow section of the ship, which is gonna be pretty tricky since we're making a Japanese destroyer. Now, I would took in some trial and error, but I managed to got this here correctly, but actually had to keep it very straight because we need to make sure it has lots of detail in half for the ship here. So now we're going to move on to the bows, so we're going to do the same thing. At the deck, after that we're going to add the framework, which is going to be pretty tricky. Now, before we actually add in the deck, we need to shape it to look like the bow, so that we can use it as a guide, so we can make the smaller parts for our bow to make it more shaped like the original Kajio class destroyer. Okay, building the bow of the ship's gonna be pretty tricky and pretty problematic, since most of it is also a curvature signature. So to do that, I'm gonna need to add some guides that will fit inside and actually protect the underside of the ship. So it's pretty hard for you to see, but we actually drawing ourselves a small guide there, so we can start cutting it using the small side cutters we have. Building the bow of the harekaze will be pretty tricky when building the Kachio class, but easily you could actually make a guide, and this is the same thing what I did there. And you may add the curvature a bit since it was also curved. So underneath the deck, we're actually going to create another layer of our curvature section of the bow, so that we can get the bow more slanted further into the second layer. Just like this sample here of our blueprint, but we're trying to make it look like realistic, just like the real destroyer. Make the outer layer of the bow, which also curves, you're going to use a small piece of the cardboard here, of the cardboard paper. Just need a little trim it like I do to here. Then after that, you just need to cut a bit using a knife. Pieces there, so you actually get yourself an angular shape and perfectly consistent to look like a Kachio class destroyer. You can do it like in other ships, but this is one example. You're going to do that do it on your own. You can trim out the inner sides of the guides there. It's just like the real time you do when you're making your own ship. But since we're making a Kachio class destroyer, we're trying to make it more like very detailed to look like a real one. Sometimes the cardboard, when we're making the bow, it cannot be overlapped or match itself to the top. So you can actually add some hot glue there to smooth it out more easier. And also cover the cracks.
Same thing to the other side. Yep. Okay, looks like we finished our hull of our ship. Even though I did try my best to create the hull, but this is definitely what FPUs will look like using some footage and 3D models. But however, it is getting late for me right now, so I'm going to move on all the way to Part 2 of the build, which includes the superstructure, the weapons, the radar, also the painting. And since Part 1 is going to be pretty hard, since we already finished the build of the hull, which includes the bow, Part 2 would definitely be pretty harder because we need to do all the details we need to look like the ship, just like the anime series. So stay tuned for that, and if you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notification bell. Stay tuned for more videos. Also, leave a comment down below, and I'll see y'all in the future. Bye!